Well, let's address what you said first before I go into the ingredients we want to avoid. Let's state what would be a safe and easy option that would support our health and, it could really almost never have a problem if you choose it.
Right.
And first of all, it's going over to the fresh produce section and looking at the variety of colors, shapes, textures, and types of foods, fruits, and vegetables. And everything you select from that section should be 90% of your food, and none of it is dangerous or hazardous to your health. Some of it may have more chemicals than others, and there are other conversations we can talk about. There's a lot of people that get on a bandwagon for the genetically modified food conversation or, preservatives in foods and pesticides on plants. But let's just say that first and foremost, the safest food is over there in that section. So if your shopping cart is filled with mostly that, you've eliminated about 90% of the problems that you're talking about.
That's a great start.
Yeah, so let's fill up the shopping cart over there, and let's call next the animal products and the processed foods. Let's call them the supplement to our diet. If you're living on all red meat, you said so, it's not a healthy thing to do. If you're eating all processed packaged food, you can bet you're going to have heart disease, hardening of the arteries, osteoporosis, and all kinds of allergy reactions, because packaged processed food is padding somebody's pocketbook and not your health. So those things are supplemental, though. If they're 10% of your diet, you're not giving more than 10% of your health control over to the engineers of those foods, okay? 90% of your diet is coming from the farm, and then those foods are preserving your health, and those are the things you want to do. That's just a basic, simple principle. So then from there, what's in the food and why don't we want it to have it? First of all, sodium nitrate causes cancer. It's with no shadow of a doubt does it cause cancer. There's so much information on this online. You can find it everywhere. Sodium nitrate. Where do you find it? We're not going to like this too much. Hot dogs, bacon, sausage, all the processed meats have sodium nitrate in them unless they say they don't. So it will say on the label, nitrate-free. If it says nitrate-free, you're safe. Well, then, why do we put nitrates in food? Well, they're a preservative, and they're also a color fixer. They want the food to stay red. So when it gets old, if it has nitrates in it, it'll stay red, and it'll still look fresh. So I don't want to eat old food. Anyway, I don't need nitrates in my food. But usually the hot dogs or sausage or bacon that does not have nitrate in it is frozen. It's frozen fresh, and you just thaw it out and cook it right then, and you're safe. So it's not that you can't have those things, but you have to go out of your way to make sure you're getting them without nitrates.
How important is it to get organic fruits and veggies?
It's becoming easier. And in some foods, it's more important than others. I love red peppers, but the chemical-grown red pepper, the non-organic red pepper, is loaded with chemicals that they enhance the soil with to pump up the size and grow it fast. So those, I don't have to have red peppers. If they're organic, or if I have a garden, I grow my own, and you're better off that way. Also, maybe a local farmer who's not 100% organic, so he can't promote it that way, but he's not pumping out red peppers as fast as the large commercial growers, and he's using a lot less chemical on the crop. Berries are pretty safe to eat those non-organic. Most of your green vegetables, except kale, is really better organic, but the difference in the price between organic and non-organic is next to nothing. So, it's kind of like you have to look at what you can do. If you have organic produce available to you, if the price isn't, 2 times more expensive for the organic, then go ahead and have it. Check it out a little bit. But like I said, those red peppers are a problem. Onions, they are really not much of a problem. The problem with onions is that they actually spray a preservative on the onion to package it and pack it across the country. So if your onions are not organic, you want to at least peel the first layer of onion off, even if it looks like it might be usable. Get rid of it because it probably is loaded with a preservative that they've put on the onion.
What about washing your fruits and veggies?
Well, we definitely want to wash them, and you can wash them in, any dishwashing soap is a surfactant. That's all the fruit and veggie washes are. If you're just using something that's a surfactant, you want to rinse it off. But you can even, we have a lot of chlorine in our water. You can put a drop of bleach in the water if you're really concerned about that. I really am not that paranoid about it. I just wash my fruits and vegetables with tap water. Fruits are like apples. If they're out of season and you don't live in a place where they grow, they might be waxed. You can feel the wax on the skin. Peel the skin off in that case. When the apple's in season and you can get a fresher apple, then you're just wash the skin. And don't worry about it because the skin actually is beneficial unless it's coated with wax. But, you can hear all of these things I say, this and less this, because there's so many things being done to our food today. It's unfortunate, but there is more conversation about what we should eat and our diseases than there needs to be. But it's because we've become such a disease-ridden society, and the food chain is being controlled by big business.
This is unbelievable, because when I was growing up, I never remembered hearing these conversations about food. What has changed in the last 30 years?
The local farmer is being put out of business, and big conglomerates are taking over the seeds and the farms. And it's unfortunate. So in the summertime, when we have farmers markets around us, that's the best place to go. And there are more farmers markets cropping up in response to this that's happened in the last 25 or 30 years. It's actually, I believe it's getting better. It's turning around, and more local farmers are taking a stand. More people are saying, I'm going to grow my own food. And, we can't grow all of our food in the way that we live these days, but we can grow some or buy some from the people who are growing theirs.
You might want to grow some fruits and veggies, but what about meat? You hear about farm-raised meat. I buy a lot of fish, a lot of salmon, and it's always this subject, is this farm-raised, is it wild? Which one is the best?
Wild. The farm-raised, unless it's specified, organic farm-raised. Organic farm-raised is a different conversation. But if it's just farm-raised, and they've been doing this for a long time, we just found out. They've been farm-raising fish for the past 30 or 40 years. We just didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know that they were farm-raising so much of the fish that we eat. Tilapia is a very easy fish to catch out of the Mediterranean, and yet we're farm-raising it. And when we farm-raise it, it's fed things that fish wouldn't normally eat, and it's also loaded up with preservatives. So it's really better to stay away from the farm-raised fish. It almost comes to a place. I don't say that everyone needs to be a vegetarian, but the more vegetable or plant-based foods you eat, that would include brown rice and oatmeal and barley and millet and beans and lentils and corn and all of those things. The more of those kind of foods that you eat, the healthier you're going to be and the less expensive it's going to be for you. You can supplement with beef and chicken and turkey and those types of things, but you really, when you're talking about an animal product, you really then should have grass-fed, organic, free-range animals, opposed to animals that are locked up in cages, chickens that never see the daylight. They're fed hormones and chemicals to fatten them up fast and kill them and bring them to the slaughter and serve them to you. They aren't even a chicken. But the chickens that are farm-raised, it takes more time and more care, they're going to be a little more expensive. So you're going to limit the amount that you eat because you're going to be spending so much money. But in reality, the countries that eat less animal meat, using it more as the condiment, it used to be, when I grew up anyway, there was a big piece of meat on your plate, and you might have a couple little vegetables around it, and you didn't want to bother with them, or they put the parsley on for garnish, and nobody ate it. We need to reverse that. Lots of green vegetables, kale, collard greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, parsley, Brussels sprouts, broccoli. Put those things, load them up on the plate with squash and carrots and okra and sweet potatoes, and then put the meat as a side condiment. Small piece of chicken, small piece of beef, a small piece of turkey, that's all fine, and then you can afford to buy the quality animal products it's more expensive to raise them properly on the farm. Unless you find a 4-H person in your area, someone that's growing their beef and sharing the herd, and they're slaughtering it and sharing a portion of it, then it's not even as expensive as the commercial stuff. Yeah. So we do have to put a little bit of effort into it to find out how to get it, but it's either that or face someday, and it's happening even to people in their 30s and 40s, heart disease, cancer, hardening of the arteries, and I don't like to use scare tactics or threaten people, but it's just a reality. The healthcare industry, and not healthcare, it's disease care industry is growing rapidly. If a young college-age person asks anybody what should they go to school and study in order to have employment, it would be in the medical profession, because that industry is growing rapidly. Why is that? We're smarter, we should be healthier. because the food industry is taking over the healthy food and pushing things at us that are cheap and loaded with garbage. Hydrogenated oils, that's another one of the big problems. Hydrogenated oils are in all of our manufactured processed foods unless the label says that it does not contain hydrogenated oils. They cause heart disease, one of the number one killers in our country.
Going back to the red flags, that's one thing that we should look for.
Hydrogenated oils. We do not want hydrogenated oils. They deteriorate the cell. The cell is the basic essence of our body, and they deteriorate and destroy the cell wall. And then when the cell is destroyed, all the organs go from there. They're in cookies, crackers, margarine, breads. They're like a plastic fat that when it gets into the body, it doesn't belong there, and it irritates everything. We need fats in our body to keep ourselves healthy. The very thing we need has been distorted in destroying the health of the cell.
I want to jump to fat-free because a lot of my listeners, I know they're on diets. And the first thing a lot of people go for in the supermarket is a fat-free product. But tell me if this is true or not. I have heard that those fat-free products actually have ingredients that can make you gain weight.
They absolutely do. Some of them are appetite stimulants. That's why they make you gain weight, because you're eating a fat-free product, so you think you can eat more of it, and you're hungry because they're stimulating your appetite, and you keep eating more of it. It still has calories. It still has carbohydrates. And the fats, the artificial synthetic fats are the very things that destroy the cell wall. We need fat in order to stay healthy. Good quality fats, like from fish, avocados, coconut oil. You know, there is a whole dietary plan where people eat 5 to 7 tablespoons of coconut oil a day to lose weight. How could that possibly be? It's a high-fat diet, but it's a healthy fat diet that promotes the health of the cell and the health of your metabolism. And that is critical. It's these artificial fats, these hydrogenated, they might say trans fats. They're absolutely devastating to American health, and they also stimulate the appetite.
There must be some money behind this or something.
You know there is. There's a lot of money behind the food industry and manufacturing these processed foods that really don't support us. That's why taking a stand, a grassroots stand, and if it's just by yourself, that you're not going to support these people that are not caring about the health of the country, the health of children. I mean, children live on these kind of foods.
I had heard that hamburger meat can come actually from different parts of the world.
Hamburger meat can be anything. It can be absolutely anything. And I'll tell you something that is a plant that's not good for us, especially because of what they're doing to it, is soy. And most of our fast food restaurants, the hamburger meat we're getting is also loaded up with hydrolyzed soy protein, which is not digestible. It's like if you've ever burnt an egg on the bottom of a pan and you can't get the little mark from the egg off the pan. It's because the protein was hydrolyzed. And the hydrolyzed protein destroys your digestion. It actually reduces testosterone levels in men and makes men less manly. And it actually packs up around the breast, estrogen receptors of the breast, and causes breast cancer. So we're feeding all our young children hamburgers from fast food restaurants that are laced with soy proteins that cause disease.
We're going to take a commercial break. I am Lindsay James, the lady with the moves. We will be back in a moment. And what's not good. Right now I want to get into some diets. A lot of people are on the raw food diet. What is your take on that?
Well, it's how we do the raw food diet that really matters. Many of the proponents of the raw food diet, it's called raw foods, but it's really, again, supplemented with some cooked things like cooked bean soups and cooked grains, and then lots of raw plant foods. And really, the raw foods diet, if done correctly, is very, very healthy. It's incredibly healthy to live on a raw foods diet, if done correctly. That doesn't mean that you just eat salads all day long. You have to understand how to balance the protein. For example, flaxseed, hemp seed, or chia seeds, 1 tablespoon of those seeds ground up will give you 3 grams of protein, all the amino acids you need to build healthy cells, and a good quality fat source. That's only 1 tablespoon. Really, a woman about not pregnant, just the average woman not pregnant, 125 to 135 pounds, needs 6 grams of protein a day. And in 1 tablespoon of a ground seed, you can get 3. So it's a really healthy way to eat. There are lots of studies that show that overeating even healthy food can shorten your life and deteriorate your health. So if you can get the nutritional quality that you need out of something so simple as that, then learning how to prepare other foods, whether they be raw or whether they be slightly cooked, is the key to staying healthy. You know, you ask about raw food, and I have to throw this out here. In my book, Your Health in the Kitchen, I have recipes, and I label them if they fall into the raw foods category or if they fall into what's called a macrobiotic food category. Macrobiotics is a semi-vegetarian diet. It kind of gives, if you understand the principles, it gives people the room to modify their diet to meet their needs, starting with the basic principle that we should be eating whole, locally grown, plant-based food as the primary source of our diet, and then animal food as a supplement. And the macrobiotic diet includes raw food. So some people who will want to be really strict on a raw foods diet wouldn't touch a macrobiotic food. A lot of Asian foods in the macrobiotic diet, like miso soup, which is a little salty, there's reason for that. But so some raw food people won't eat that. When the macrobiotic people won't say that they eat a lot of raw food. But in reality, both of those diets are very healthy, and we should have a combination or a mix of those to really balance it out depending on who we are. The other third diet that's very popular that I'm really in favor of, I'm in favor of these 3 diets in a modified fashion and done properly. The other thing is a gluten-free diet. Lots of people have gluten allergies. The reason is all the processed food and what they do to wheat, what's been added to it, and how it's destroyed our digestive tract. So even if you're not gluten intolerant, eating less gluten is very beneficial because you'll eat less processed food, less ground up food, and you'll be eating more food that supports your health. So those are actually the 3 diets that I combine in my cookbook with recipes, and very few of those recipes don't fit into every one of those categories. Obviously, anything that's cooked isn't raw, but a raw foods diet, if the food is lightly blanched, it doesn't lose the enzymes that the raw foods people complain about. And also, if you eat a fermented food, you're putting a massive amount of those enzymes in your body. So those 3 diets, the gluten-free, the raw food, although gluten-free, if you just go gluten-free and buy a lot of processed food, it's not healthy for you, and it's not good for you. You need to go gluten-free by eating foods that don't contain gluten and eliminating the processed foods. The marketplace is becoming saturated with gluten-free processed foods. They're still loaded with poor quality fats. They still have my third ingredient that I hate the most. I call excitotoxins. I'm not the only person that calls it that, but that would be your MSG and your aspartame and those artificial ingredients that enhance the flavor of food, but they stimulate the nervous system, leading to all the ADD and neurological problems that kids are having today and adults because they're eating too much processed food.
A lot of women are on diets always to lose weight. They're looking at South Beach, Dr. Atkins, high-protein diets. What's your take on those? Okay,
and that is a problem. I know lots of women who've done those diets. Now, I'm 57 years old, and I've been doing this for over 30 years. So, I've been around for a while to watch people on their merry-go-round of going on these diets. People lose weight on those diets and immediately afterwards show up with disease, serious disease, within the next several years after losing all that weight. It's not the weight loss, it's the high protein. When you eat a high protein diet, your body goes into what they call ketosis. It starts digesting itself. It's a very acidic condition. You drop weight fast, but you're a breeding ground for bacteria, viruses, and those are the beginning of disease. By the time the disease shows up and it's diagnosable, you've been a breeding ground for all kinds of parasites, bacteria, and viruses for a long time, and anybody that has an acidic blood condition is that breeding ground. That blood condition, that acid condition, comes from eating too much protein. So those diets where people consume high amounts of protein, that's the problem.
What kind of diseases can people develop as a result of going on those diets?
Heart disease, cancer, lupus, autoimmune disease. I've seen it the last 30 years so many times. The thing is that most of Americans, after they reach about 35, and that's not very old, they're in the beginning stages of some disease. Most of us are in America because of the way that we've eaten. Unless you've been very intentional and conscious since you were in your early 20s, by the the time you hit 35, you're starting to develop the disease of choice, whatever it's going to be for you. So if you have a weight problem and you're starting to develop a disease and you go on a high-protein diet that throws your body into ketosis and you lose weight, that disease doesn't stop developing, and ketosis is the perfect environment for the disease to accelerate, rapidly accelerate. So it may not be that the high-protein diet is just causing the disease, but it's creating the environment for whatever else may be going on in the body. It's not healthy. It's throwing your body into a crisis state, and disease that's there gets a stronghold or gets a foothold in the body, and then they're thin and they think they're doing great, and the next thing you know, they show up with autoimmune diseases like lupus and other diseases, chronic fatigue syndrome, all kinds of things that the doctors can't diagnose what's wrong with them. They can't have children. They stop menstruating early. They start going into menopause early. Men developing breast and losing their testosterone levels and their drives for sex. All of these things because their body is so thrown into chaos. And the medical profession doesn't have answers. At best, they can give a pharmaceutical that will suppress the symptoms of these diseases that they really can't diagnose. They just diagnose according to the symptom and give a pharmaceutical that if we read the side effects, not that we can even live without them when we've come to this place, but if you read the side effects, you're on a merry-go-round or a roller coaster speeding in the direction of something else. Or you can do what we started out with. Eat 90% of your food from the fresh local produce section. Beans, grains, and carrots and turnips and rutabagas and squash and parsnips, and some people have never even eaten any of these things. And the green leafy foods, there's tons of different varieties of cabbages and ways to prepare them. I actually have a YouTube channel called MS Healthy Body on YouTube. And you'll find me there cooking cabbage and showing people how to do it. I put videos out all the time just trying to put in the hands of people tools so they can learn to prepare healthy, nutritious food. I have a business and I run the business, and I am trying to give away as much information as I can that will put more Americans' feet on the ground and their intention on keeping their health and not turning it over to the medical profession because they have no other choice.
Please give it to us. We need it. This information is fascinating as well as frightening. The next thing I want to ask you about is salt. What is going on with salt?
Wow. That is also a really loaded question. In the processed food, again, I know I keep saying the same thing, it is loaded with salt, and it's killing us. Salt causes a contraction in the body, and by the way, it's also alkaline. Now, if you were listening before, I was alluding to the fact that being alkaline is a good thing. If acid is a bad thing, the opposite of that is alkaline. Alkaline is a good thing, except that we eat acid and then we throw in salt and make us alkaline, and it's a merry-go-round of throwing the body back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So the balance of salt is critical, and the quality of salt is critical. Table salt is laced with chemical ingredients that keep it from caking together. It's also highly refined, and all that's in it is sodium chloride. If you eat salts that are natural salts that are from the sea, they contain 50% minerals that we need besides sodium chloride. So first of all, that right off the bat, the salt is cut in half. The sodium chloride we call salt, but it's sodium chloride that's a problem, and the sodium chloride is cut in half if we use an unrefined sea salt. The Himalayan salt is amazing in its nutrient value and its taste. It's delicious and wonderful, but you can't eat packaged processed foods and use any other salt. If you're eating fresh, organic, or locally grown produce and vegetables and making soups and beans, adding salt and herbs and spices to that is very, very beneficial and very healthy. I mean, salt was a trade commodity in ancient times because it was so important. The people that lived inland needed to have some of the salt, and they would trade for salt because we need it to stay healthy and alive. So you can't go on a raw foods, salt-free diet and stay healthy for a long time because the raw foods don't have enough sodium in them. So unless you're eating a ton of celery, a few foods have a lot of sodium, but very few of the raw foods. So the problem again goes back to the processed packaged food that's loaded up with sodium. The other thing that salt does, and it's amazing, it's no wonder America is sick. If you put salt on animal protein, like chicken or turkey or beef or eggs, it makes the protein hard to digest. And who eats their meat without salt? So we're not digesting our food. Here's the deal. The body is amazing. When you study the science of nutrition and microbiology, anatomy and physiology, and all the things that are happening in the body, it is miraculous what's going on every minute. And especially because we're starving the body of what it needs when we eat these packaged foods and poisoning it at the same time. You're right. It's fantastic and frightening. But I don't want to give in to the frightening side. I want to go in the direction of the fantastic side and inspire people to just start doing one more thing. I have a 29-year-old daughter. She started a blog this week called Just One Thing. Just change one thing today.
What valuable information can we get from reading your books?
Well, my book, Your Health Turned On, talks about these different issues that you and I are actually discussing. And it's a theory book. And it's a theory book that, as I present to you that you shouldn't eat these processed packaged foods and why you shouldn't eat these processed packaged foods, I would hope that while you're reading or while you're listening, you're making decisions. Some decision might be, this woman's crazy and I can't do this, and I wonder why you make that decision. Those are the questions I ask you in the book. Okay, I'm not saying take my word for it. I'm saying investigate these options. But then don't just hear it and walk away and say, that was really interesting, and I think people should do that and do nothing about it. Take a positive stand for yourself. Take some positive action. So I actually ask you to write down what you're going to do about what you just read. So that's Your Health Turned On. And then Your Health in the Kitchen is all recipes, just to support your commitment to the changes that you may have decided to make in the Your Health Turned On book. They're basic and understandable recipes, and then I have a DVD series to go along with that that's also called Your Health in the Kitchen. And I do 3 cooking classes that are live in my Culinary Institute, and I talk about a lot of the things you and I have talked about while I prepare food, and you can see exactly how it's prepared. And then, like I said, I have some other support newsletters and material like that because I'm just trying to get people to wake up and make these changes.
Sounds amazing. You are all about solutions, and I love it.
You can get the books on my beauty website, frownies.com. You can also sign up for my Facebook page there, and on Facebook I put recipes out, and I give inspirational tips all the time. And you can find the other things I do if you go to frownies.com. It's like brownies with an F, frownies.com. It's an anti-aging skincare line, and I put my books there because I think that you can't have beautiful, healthy skin by smearing on no matter what I create. But you can have beautiful, healthy skin by changing your dietary habits, eating healthy. The skin is an organ. It's the largest organ of the body, and it eliminates all this poison and toxin we put in. We cause it to age quickly. We cause the cells of the skin to age and then look dry and leathery, and then we smear all kinds of billions of dollars, by the way, of skincare products on top of our skin, and it doesn't help unless we change the